All right, let's get right into it. When you think about a beehive, your mind probably jumps to the honeycomb, right? But what about the lids, the little caps on top of each cell? It's easy to just dismiss them as simple wax seals. But what if I told you they're actually these incredibly sophisticated, purpose-built structures, each one engineered for a very specific job? And that's really the big question we're digging into today, isn't it? How does a tiny wax cap go from being just a cover to being a breathable nursery for a developing bee, or an airtight vault for keeping honey fresh? Well, the answer is all in the bee's brilliant engineering. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll see that there really is a cap for every purpose. Then we'll dive into the science behind the breathable nursery and the airtight pantry. We're also going to uncover this amazing bee behavior called the pollen quarantine, and then we'll wrap it all up with the secrets of their architecture. Okay, let's get started. I want you to think of the hive not just as a home, but as this meticulously planned city. Every single structure has a function, and that is especially true for the cappings on the honeycomb cells. They are absolutely not a one-size-fits-all deal. They're custom built for whatever is inside that cell.
So first up, let's talk about the nursery. This is where the brood, the bee larvae, are developing. And for them to survive, they need a very, very special kind of lid. One that's basically engineered for life itself.
Now, what's so cool here is that you can literally see the difference in the engineering. Over on the left, you've got the flat cap on a standard worker cell. Simple enough. But look to the right at the drone brood cap. It's not just in a bigger cell. It has this distinct raised dome shape. And why? Well, it's simple. Male bees, the drones, they're just bigger than the female workers, so their little nursery cells have to be bigger. It's a perfect example of form following function.
So they look different on the outside, but what are they made of? This is where the real genius is. Despite their different shapes, both of these caps are made from the exact same 3-ingredient recipe. You've got beeswax, of course. Then they mix in tiny little grains of pollen. And get this, the final ingredient actually comes from the larva itself. Fine silk threads that it spins right before it gets sealed in. It's a true collaboration.
And this very specific recipe of wax, pollen, and silk creates a material with one absolutely crucial property: permeability. All that means is that it allows gases to pass through it. And for a little developing bee, that is literally the difference between life and death. The best way to think about it is like this. It's basically Gore-Tex for bees. The cap acts like this high-tech, breathable membrane. It lets essential oxygen flow in for the larva to breathe, while letting the waste carbon dioxide flow out. It's a perfect, tiny little life support system. And this principle even holds true for the most important bee of all, the queen. Her cell looks totally different, kind of like a peanut shell hanging off the comb. But the cap, the seal at the end of it, is built from that exact same breathable 3-part recipe, making sure she can develop safely inside. Okay, so we've seen the nursery. Now let's move over to the hive's pantry. Because when bees aren't raising their young, they're storing food. And for that job, they need a completely different kind of engineering. A cap designed not for breathing, but for long-term preservation. And this slide right here, this is the whole story in a nutshell. Just look at the contrast. The brood cap's whole purpose is respiration, so it's made from that wax, pollen, silk composite that gives it high permeability. But the honey cap, its purpose is preservation, so its composition is almost pure wax, which results in low permeability. 2 different jobs, 2 totally different materials. You can even see the difference. Unlike those darker, kind of pollen-speckled brood caps, honey cappings are often this beautiful, pure white or translucent color. And that's because they're made almost entirely from pure beeswax, without all that added pollen and silk. This chart just makes it crystal clear. If you were to analyze these cappings, you'd find a ton of pollen in the brood caps. But in the honey caps, the amount is incredibly tiny, practically 0. And that lack of pollen is the whole key to how it works. So what's the point? Well, without the porous structure that the pollen and silk create, that pure wax cap forms an airtight, almost vacuum-like seal. And that's critical because honey loves to absorb moisture right out of the air. This seal stops that from happening, protecting the honey from fermenting and spoiling. It keeps it perfectly preserved for months or even years.
All right, now for something that is just wild. A time when bees completely break their own rules. This is like looking at the hive's very own biohazard protocol, a super clever solution to a really dangerous problem.
So here's the thing you need to know. As a general rule, Bees do not cap their stored pollen. They pack it into the cells and just leave it open for easy access. It's one of their main food sources. So if you're looking at a hive and you see capped pollen, you know something unusual is going on. So what is this strange process? It's basically a 3-step quarantine. First, the bees somehow detect that a cell of pollen has gone bad. It's contaminated or spoiled. Second, they isolate it. And third, they build a special wax cap right over it, effectively entombing the threat and walling it off from the rest of the healthy hive. And this phenomenon has a name. It's called entombed pollen. Now, it's pretty rare to see, but it's this incredible example of bees using their building materials not just for raising young or storing food, but for active disease prevention. They are literally problem-solving in real time.
So, after looking at the nursery, the pantry, and even the quarantine ward, what are the big takeaways? What have we really learned from the hive's smart lids?
Let's just recap the brilliant engineering we've seen. I mean, it is so clear that bees are master material scientists. Every single capping structure is driven by its function. You've got the breathable, multi-material composite for the developing brood, and the impermeable, pure wax seal for preserving honey. And as we saw with entombed pollen, they even use their architectural skills to solve problems and keep the hive clean. It's just a truly dynamic and intelligent system.
And all of this leaves us with one final big thought. We've just seen how bees custom engineer materials for breathing, for preserving, and for quarantining. So if they are capable of this level of sophisticated, purpose-driven design, what other secrets are hidden in their architecture? It really makes you wonder what else we, as humans, can learn from them. The next time you see a bee, don't just think about honey. Think about a tiny architect, a materials scientist, solving complex problems that maybe, just maybe, could inspire our own next great innovation.